Danger Dolan. From criminals that send their victims a Facebook request to guys that forge money in the shape of $1 million bill, we count 15 of the lamest criminals ever to infect society with their ineptitude.
Number 15.
A guy casually walking down the street finds a bike chained to a tree. Now you'd imagine if he wanted to steal the bike that he would just cut off the chain with cable cutters, right? Nope. In the middle of the busy street, this guy takes out his axe and decides to cut down the tree in front of dozens of people. The whole time he was getting heckled, some people pushing him around, but he was determined, and after 7 minutes the tree fell, but people chased him away before he could steal the bike.
Number 14.
A Polish author called Christian Bala, who brutally murdered another person in the year 2000. He was never caught, and he kept writing his novels. 3 years after the murder, he wrote a book called Amok, in which he describes a very similar murder to the one he actually committed. A reader tipped off the police. They discovered several links to the real case. Christian was caught out and sentenced 25 years, simply because he couldn't keep a very basic secret. But at least his book sales skyrocketed.
Number 13.
An 18-year-old robber in Chicago tried to rob this muffler shop, but when he busted in armed to the teeth demanding money, he heard something no robber ever wants to hear. The money was in the safe, and the only person who could get into the safe was the manager, who wasn't there. Instead of, cutting his losses, this guy does the unthinkable thing. He writes down his phone number, hands it to the employees, and tells them to ring him back when they have the money. The instant he walked out of the door, the employees called the police, they rang the robber and had him walk straight back into the shop, only to get slapped with handcuffs.
Number 12.
This one criminal called Christopher Cron was so terrible at his profession that he actually made an instructional video on how not to commit burglary. He cites this one time he broke into a store. The alarm tripped, but he didn't leave, even though it was blaring in his ears. The security company rang the store's phone only for Cron to pick it up and supply them with his real name. Even after all this, all he stole was a couple of beer bottles, to which he returned to the store a day later and was recognized by everyone that worked there. He was arrested on the spot.
Number 11.
A thief that stole this woman's purse was in such a rush that he left behind 2 bags, both of which contained critical information for the case. For some reason, he had been carrying around his own birth certificate, and just as damning, a note from his own mother. What boggles the mind is, if you've decided to steal belongings, why wouldn't you leave your goddamn birth certificate at home, or, and here's a thought, not carry bags full of ID and then forget you have them.
Number 10.
A 40-year-old criminal called Daniel Glenn, who tried to rob a convenience store in Ontario by calling the person that worked there to ask them how much money they had in the cash register. The instant the call ended, the employee got the police down there, where they found Daniel skulking nearby and then arrested him. Amazingly, Daniel had already tried this tactic several times before, ringing ahead to make sure the store had money ready for him to collect.
Number 9.
A Swedish man browsing a certain dating website was annoyed that the 13-year-old girl he'd been attempting to sleep with did not turn up at their date. He'd given her almost $100 as an advance payment, but after she started to ignore him, he tried to get himself justice by ringing her father to demand she provide a refund because she wouldn't sleep with him. Suffice to say, the Swedish man did not get a refund. Suffice to say, his plan would backfire very, very hard.
Number 8.
This one criminal took this woman's cell phone and almost got away with it, except when later on he decided to send her a Facebook friend request. She immediately recognized him from his 500 plus photos and got his name, Juan Gonzalez Jr. He was arrested and charged with second-degree burglary and felony theft, but most of all, he was charged with being a gigantic idiot.
Number 7.
A criminal called Darren Kimpton tried to break into a house. Then he cut himself on some glass and in doing so left blood at the crime scene. Later that day he tried to break into another place, only to accidentally find himself in a house filled with police officers. The cops were there investigating an unrelated burglary when they caught Darren attempting to force his way into the house. When he realized how screwed he was, he tried to make a run for it, but they quickly subdued him.
Number 6.
An older woman who, like all of us, turned to the police in her time of crisis, but her issue was a bit dodgy. She walked up to a police officer and asked for help in getting money back because the cocaine she had bought turned out to be low quality. She even showed the officer the cocaine and then immediately found herself under arrest because, well, she showed an officer the cocaine.
Number 5.
Another story about an old woman, but this one reaching 95 years old, and although she was confined to a wheelchair, she still managed to keep a burglar from breaking in. It was 3 AM when this woman heard glass break near her front door, so she picked up a screwdriver and stabbed the hand reaching through the window again and again while calling for help. Police arrived and found the burglar passed out on her front porch, bleeding from multiple stab wounds.
Number 4.
This one guy, Derek Mosley, walked into a gun store wielding a baseball bat and tried to steal a gun. Tried to steal a gun from a gun store with a baseball bat. He smashed the glass display case and attempted to take one of the firearms, but things didn't quite go right for him. Suffice to say, the store's owner laughed, pulled out a gun, and kept Derek in his crosshairs until the police could arrive to arrest him.
Number 3.
One older guy called Michael Anthony Fuller, who had the balls to create his own counterfeit money, didn't realize that subtlety is key when he made a visit to Walmart to cash in $1 million bill. For his $500 purchase, he asked for $999,000 in change, to which the police were called in. They spent a good deal of time staring in disbelief at this ludicrous $1 million bill before they slapped him with an attempt to obtain goods under false pretense.
Number 2.
A 48-year-old criminal called Dennis Hawkins, who unsuccessfully tried to rob a bank on 2 separate occasions wearing an amazing disguise. He wore a blonde wig, fake breasts, clown pants, and a goatee, trying to pass himself off as the burliest woman imaginable, with nothing covering his face, which made him the most conspicuous man on earth. A gas station attendant later reported some idiot dressed like a woman had tried to steal a car, and police nabbed him up straight away.
Number 1.
A 21-year-old guy called Frank Singleton just released from jail. The very first thing he did after getting released was to visit the prison parking lot and carjack a woman. Even though he was successful, he got in the car and realized he didn't know how to drive a manual. He was sent back to jail immediately. The police asked him why he did it, why he couldn't even wait more than a few minutes to return to his life of crime, to which Frank replied, "I didn't feel like walking." That's it for this countdown, and have a good one!